Okay, so have you ever ordered something online?
Of course. Who hasn't these days?
Right. And like thought about the journey that that thing took,
Yeah.
like how it actually got to you.
Mm-hmm.
So think about like a silk scarf, right?
Okay.
You want this beautiful silk scarf. You
Yeah.
order it, it shows up at your door,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a whole process behind that.
Absolutely.
It's not just like instant magic,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where this career comes in.
Yeah.
Textiles distribution manager.
Okay.
They're the ones making all that happen behind the scenes.
Yeah, they are. They're the ones making it look like magic, basically.
They are the ones making it look like magic.
That's a good way to put it.
So we're going to dive deep on that today, figure out what's involved.
Yeah.
We're using some information from RoleCatcher.
Okay.
They're a career development platform.
So they have a lot of good insights for us.
Yeah, and it's specifically their career guide on this subject. So
Oh, interesting. Okay.
we're going to kind of use that as our guide for today to break it all down.
So Textiles distribution manager.
Yeah, what does that even mean?
All right. It sounds pretty
It sounds pretty important, like just the title alone.
important. Yeah. High level for sure.
Yeah, but like what are they actually doing?
Right. Because it's not just about like moving some fabric around.
Is it like driving a truck full of cotton? Like what is this?
No, no, no. Definitely not. That's not what we're talking about here.
All right.
It's really about the whole journey
Okay.
from raw material
Okay.
to the things we wear, right?
Okay.
The clothes on our backs.
So like even from the sheep to the sweater, kind of.
Yes, exactly. So you've got things like, cotton, wool, all of that. That gets turned into fabric, right?
Okay.
And then that fabric,
Like bolts of fabric.
bolts of fabric, exactly, that you see in the store. Maybe you go to,
Like a fabric
a
store.
fabric store. Yeah, exactly.
Or even like if you're ordering like wholesale.
Exactly. And then, of course, all the way to the clothes that we buy off the rack.
Okay.
And so a textile distribution manager, they are overseeing that entire web.
That is a lot.
It's a big job. Yeah.
Okay, so we're not just talking about like one little part of this.
No, not at all.
They're really like the mastermind behind how this all.
They're I like to think of them as like the conductor of an orchestra,
Oh, okay.
because you have all these different instruments, all these moving pieces.
Right, and it has to all come together.
And it has to come together in this beautiful symphony of,
Or a shirt.
of a shirt, of a scarf, of whatever it is
Right.
that ends up, in our hands eventually.
Interesting. So I'm curious, like, what does that actually look like day to day?
Right, because the conductor of an orchestra sounds very grand.
Right, it does.
But what are they actually doing?
Yeah, are they emailing? Are they like on the phone? Or
Yeah, are they like on a ship, like, directing things?
Right. What are some of the things they're like actually doing on a daily basis?
So RoleCatcher breaks down some key tasks that
Okay.
we can look at.
Yeah, give us the details.
All right, so first off, strategy.
Okay.
Big part of this role. They're
Makes
figuring out the best, most efficient,
Okay.
cost-effective ways to get all this material where it needs to be.
So that's got to be like shipping routes.
Shipping routes, yeah.
Like, are we putting it on a train? Are we putting it on a boat? Are we?
Exactly, yeah. Are we doing air freight, ocean freight?
Oh, wow.
What's the most efficient? What's the
Yeah,
cheapest?
right.
All of that comes into play.
Okay.
Negotiating with suppliers.
Oh, right, because you've got to get the best price.
You got to get the best price, exactly. And, making sure those relationships are solid.
Okay.
Because if a shipment gets delayed, you need to be able to call someone up and say, hey, what's going on?
Right. You need that rapport.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a very people person kind of job, it sounds like, too.
It can be. It can be, for sure. Thinking about warehouse space, where are we storing all this?
Oh, right, because you probably don't want to be paying for a huge warehouse.
No, especially if you don't need it.
Right.
If you're not using it.
Right, if you overestimate.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's really, it's a lot of logistics
Awesome.
and a lot of thinking ahead. And
So they're kind of like playing chess with a whole bunch of moving pieces.
yes, exactly. That's a great way to put it. And speaking of pieces,
Right.
inventory management is a huge part of this job.
Okay, yeah.
Making sure there's enough
Of everything.
of everything
Right.
to meet the demand.
Right, because what happens if somebody orders a shirt
Exactly.
and there's no, like, cotton to make it?
Right. And then you have to tell that customer, sorry, it's going to be 6 months.
Right, and then they're going to be very unhappy.
Exactly. So you got to keep people happy. You got to keep things moving.
Okay, but then on the flip side, what if you have too much?
Oh, well, that's not good either, because
Right.
then you're paying for storage.
Right, you're just sitting on a bunch of, like, whatever.
You're sitting on a mountain of cashmere and it's not going anywhere.
Right, exactly. And then you're losing money.
You're losing money.
Okay, so it really is a balance.
It's a delicate balance. Yeah. They're analyzing trends. They're forecasting future needs.
So they have to be like on top of what's like trendy and what's,
They have to have their finger on the pulse of the fashion world, absolutely.
wow.
Yeah, and making sure that everything's just flowing smoothly.
Okay, so that's where like the organization skills probably come in really handy.
Oh, absolutely. Organizational skills, attention to detail,
Right.
being able to multitask,
Yeah.
all of that is crucial.
Okay. And you mentioned technology earlier.
Yes.
So I feel like everything's digital these days.
It really is.
So how does that play into this?
Well, gone are the days of like just pen and paper, keeping track of things.
Right. It's not your grandma's textile industry anymore.
No, 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 definitely not. We're talking about, things like blockchain.
Okay, I've heard of blockchain,
Yeah, it's a big buzzword these days.
but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah. So in the simplest terms, it's basically a way to track
Oh, okay.
the journey of those materials
Right.
from start to finish.
So like from the sheep
From the sheep to my
to your sweater, you can see every step of the way.
Oh, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So you can see where things are, if they're delayed.
Exactly. You can see if there are any bottlenecks, any issues.
Oh, wow.
So it's really about transparency and efficiency.
That's really interesting. And then artificial intelligence, does that play a role as well?
Yeah, AI is starting to play a bigger and bigger role.
Wow.
Using it to predict trends.
Okay.
So
So like what colors are going to be popular,
Right.
what styles, what fabrics, all of that.
so you can kind of get ahead of it and make sure you have enough.
Exactly. So you're not caught off guard when suddenly everyone wants, a velvet jumpsuit.
Right, right.
I mean, you've already got the velvet ready to go.
Okay. And then you said it also helps with the shipping routes.
Yeah, optimizing shipping routes.
So it's like figuring out the absolute fastest way to get it from point A to point B.
Exactly. Taking into account, weather patterns,
Oh, wow.
traffic, all of those external factors.
That's amazing. Okay, so it's way more high tech than I imagined.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was thinking maybe like robots are sewing the things.
Right. Which that is happening too.
Okay.
But this is like next level.
This is like the brains of the operation.
The brains of the operation, exactly.
So for someone who like is listening to this and they're like, okay, this is like fascinating.
Yeah.
What kind of work environment can they expect? Is it all just like spreadsheets and cargo ships, or is there more to it?
Well, it's a good question because it's not always what you expect, right?
Right, right.
So RoleCatcher describes a typical setting as primarily an office.
Okay.
So there is definitely that element of, working with computers, analyzing data.
Okay, so there were spreadsheets involved.
There are spreadsheets involved, yes.
Okay, good to know.
But it's not your average desk job.
Okay.
Because one day you might be, analyzing data, looking at those spreadsheets.
Mm.
The next day you could be touring a textile mill,
Oh, okay.
seeing how the fabrics are actually made.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, or even, meeting with international suppliers.
Oh, wow. So there's some travel involved potentially?
There can be if you enjoy that kind of thing.
Okay, so maybe a little more glamorous than I initially thought.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you enjoy, travel, experiencing different cultures,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Okay, so maybe not every day is glamorous, but there's potential for...
Exactly. There's definitely potential for, some excitement, some variety in your day-to-day.
Okay. But imagine it can also be pretty high pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Because if something goes wrong,
Oh, yeah.
it's a whole chain reaction.
It is. If there's a delay in a shipment,
Right.
or if there's a sudden, shift in demand,
Oh, wait.
maybe a certain color suddenly becomes super popular.
Right.
You've got to be able to think on your feet and find
Adjust.
solutions.
Okay.
And sometimes those solutions are, a little bit creative.
Right, you got to think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So you need a certain kind of personality to thrive in this role, for sure.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Someone who can kind of handle a little bit of chaos
Yeah, a little bit of chaos.
and doesn't, like, crack under pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Cool under pressure is a good way to put
All
it.
right. Okay, well, this is really interesting. But we're going to take a quick break,
Okay.
and when we come back, we'll talk about, like, how you actually break into this industry.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're back.
And ready to dive into the path to becoming a textiles distribution mastermind.
Yes, because I'm sure some people are listening and they're like, wait, this sounds like my dream job.
Right. Like, sign me up. Where do I start?
Yeah, exactly. So let's start at the beginning. Like, what are the must-haves? What do you absolutely need to get into this field?
Well, according to RoleCatcher, and I'm inclined to agree,
Okay.
a relevant degree is pretty much non-negotiable.
Okay, so we're not just talking about, like, Loving fabric.
I mean, it helps.
Okay.
Have passion is always a plus, but
Yeah.
you got to have the knowledge to back it up.
Okay, so what kind of degree are we talking?
So think business administration,
Okay.
supply chain management. Those are kind of the classics.
Yeah.
Or even something a little more specialized like logistics, really getting into the nitty-gritty of how things move.
Makes sense. You got to have that foundation.
Exactly.
Okay.
That strong foundation of, business principles and how things work in that world.
Right, because you are running a business, essentially.
Exactly. Even if you're not the CEO, you're managing a crucial part of the business.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But then, okay, so you've got your degree.
Yeah.
Now what? Like, how do you actually get your foot in the door? Because I'm sure those entry-level jobs are probably...
Competitive? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They can be tough to come by,
Right.
but it's not impossible. You just got to be strategic.
Okay.
And RoleCatcher actually has some really good advice on this.
Okay, lay it on me.
Okay, so experience trumps everything.
Okay, so even if it's not like a fancy corporate job.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Even if it's just an internship.
Okay.
Maybe at a smaller company.
Oh,
Even volunteering for projects
right.
where you can get your hands dirty, so to speak, with supply chain logistics.
Okay, so it's really about just showing that you have some kind of experience,
Yeah.
even if it's not...
Exactly. You're proactive. You're eager to learn. You're not just sitting around waiting for someone to hand you a job. You're out there making things happen.
I like it, yeah. So
Yeah.
even if it's like, I don't know, helping your friend who's starting a clothing line
There you go. Perfect example.
and like figuring out their like production process.
Exactly.
Does that count?
Absolutely. That shows initiative. It shows that you understand the basics.
Okay.
And you're willing to put in the work.
Love it. Okay, so get that experience under your belt, whatever it looks like.
Exactly.
But then there's those certifications we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah, the certification.
The CSCP, the CPIM, those still kind of intimidate me a little bit.
I know. They sound very official, don't they?
They do, they do.
But honestly, they can be real game changers in this field.
Okay, so for those of us who are like, what is that? Can you kind of break those down again?
Yeah, for sure. So CSCP stands for Certified Supply Chain Professional.
Okay.
And it's basically like getting your black belt in managing every single step of the supply chain.
So from like literally the sheep
Literally the sheep, yeah.
to the store.
Yeah. To the store, to the customer's doorstep.
Wow.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It shows employers that you're not just familiar with the process,
Okay.
you're an expert in optimizing it.
So you're like the top tier
It's a top tier, yeah.
if you have that certification.
Exactly.
Okay. And then what about the CPI?
So CPIM is Certified in Production and Inventory Management.
Okay.
And this one is all about efficiency,
Okay.
making sure the right amount of everything
Okay.
is in the right place at the right time.
Is that like no mountain of cashmere just sitting
Right.
around?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
You want that cashmere going to a good home.
Right. It needs to be made into a sweater.
It needs to be made into a sweater. It needs to be on someone's back, keeping them warm.
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
Okay, so these certifications, I can see how those would make you stand out,
oh, absolutely.
especially in a competitive job market.
Especially because, let's be real, a lot of people are interested in this field.
Right.
It's a growing field. It's an exciting field. So you got to do something to set yourself apart.
To stand out from the crowd.
Exactly.
Okay, so you've got your experience, you've maybe got some certifications, you're applying for jobs,
Okay.
and then you got to get through the interview.
Dreaded interview.
Yeah. Any tips for navigating those sometimes scary conversations?
Oh, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Because interviews can be nerve-wracking,
They are.
no matter how much you prepare.
Yeah.
But being prepared is really half the battle.
Okay, so what should you be prepared for? What are they going to ask you?
So one thing that RoleCatcher emphasizes
Okay.
is being able to talk about challenges you've faced in the past,
Okay.
especially when it comes to logistics, problem solving, those kind of things.
Okay, so like that time you saved your friend's fashion show.
Exactly. That's perfect interview material right there.
Okay.
Because it shows, you can think on your feet. You're not afraid of a challenge.
Right, you can handle it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Another tip, brush up on your industry knowledge.
Okay, so like
So,
knowing what the trends are.
knowing what the trends are, knowing, how technology is impacting things,
Right.
being able to talk about blockchain,
Right.
AI, all of that good stuff.
Which shows you're paying attention.
Exactly. You're not just, applying for every job under the sun.
Yeah.
You're actually interested in this specific field.
You're invested.
You're invested. Exactly.
Okay, you're passionate, you're prepared, you're dressed to impress.
Looking sharp?
Yes. You nailed that interview.
Woohoo!
You get the job.
Congratulations.
You're officially a textiles distribution manager.
living the dream.
Yes. What's next? Like, what can you expect in terms of challenges? Because it's not always going to be smooth sailing, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Right.
There will be bumps in the road, there will be delays, there will be miscommunications.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, like, what are some of those common challenges that you might face in this role?
Oh, let me paint you a picture. Okay. Imagine this. You're working on a huge order of organic cotton
Okay.
coming in from India,
Okay.
and suddenly there's a monsoon
Oh, no.
and the entire shipment is delayed.
Oh,
And you've got designers, breathing down your neck, waiting for these fabrics.
right, because they've got deadlines.
Exactly.
That's
They've
the-
got to make things.
And it is up to you to find a solution.
Oh, man, that does sound stressful.
A little bit of pressure, right?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
But this is where those problem-solving skills really come in handy.
Okay, so what do you even do in that situation?
Right. Well, you got to get creative.
Okay.
You might need to look for alternative suppliers.
Okay.
Maybe there's someone a little closer to home who has something similar.
Right.
Maybe you need to renegotiate some deadlines,
Yep.
explain the situation, be transparent.
Right. Communicate.
Communication is key. Exactly.
Okay.
Or maybe you find a way to expedite shipping.
Okay.
Pay a little extra to get things moving faster.
Right. So there are options, but there are always options.
Think fast.
Think fast. Exactly. Be resourceful.
Okay.
That's really what this job is all about.
Okay. So it's not just about, like, knowing where things are. It's about being able to handle when they're not where they're supposed to be.
Exactly.
Okay. And are there other challenges? Like, is it all just, like, logistical nightmares or...
Well, sometimes it can be.
Okay.
Let's be real. Shipments get delayed. Things happen.
Right. That's fair.
But they're also, the human element.
Okay.
Dealing with people.
Right. Like all those suppliers.
The suppliers.
You gotta...
The factory owners.
You got, right.
Keep them happy.
Right.
The designers who are waiting for their fabrics.
Right. And they're probably very particular.
They can be.
Right.
So, imagine having to work with a supplier who's constantly missing deadlines.
Oh, that'd be so frustrating.
Right. Or a client who keeps changing their mind.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right. Like, oh, actually, we don't want the blue fabric anymore. We want the red fabric.
And you're like, but it's already on a boat.
Exactly. So those can be tricky situations to navigate.
Yeah, that's where those people skills...
And your soft skills come into play.
Yes. Okay. So what's the key to, like, handling those gracefully?
Communication. Communication. Being able to clearly communicate expectations.
Oh, yeah.
Manage expectations.
Right.
And sometimes have difficult conversations.
Right. Like, hey, that deadline's not going to work for us.
Exactly.
But here's what we can do.
There you go.
Okay. So it's all about, like, finding those solutions and being
That's
able
it.
to communicate them effectively.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's not just about the logistics. It's about being
It's about the people.
the people. Yeah.
Managing those relationships.
Right.
Building trust.
So it sounds like this textiles distribution manager, they're wearing a lot of hats.
They are wearing a lot of hats.
It's not just one job.
Yeah. No, it's a multifaceted role for sure.
Okay, this has been really eye-opening
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
because I think a lot of people probably have this very, like, one-dimensional view of what this job is.
Right. Like they're just, staring at maps all day.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's so much more than that.
It's so much more.
And it sounds like it's a role that's constantly evolving.
Absolutely. Especially with all the technology that's coming into play.
Right, and we're going to talk about that more when we come back.
Yes, we're going to delve even deeper.
Because I want to talk about where this career path can go from here.
Oh, yeah. The sky's the limit.
Because we've talked about starting out, but, like, where can you go once you're in?
Exactly. And what you need to do to get there.
So stick with us.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back and ready to talk career progression.
The exciting part, right?
Yeah, because we've talked about, like, getting your foot in the door, but, like, where can you go from there?
Exactly. Because you don't want to just stay in the same role forever.
Right, exactly. So say you've been killing it as a textiles distribution manager.
You've got the experience, the skills, maybe even those certifications under your belt.
Yeah, you're like the rock star of your company.
What's next? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, what's at the top of that career ladder?
So there are a few different paths you could take.
Okay, lay it on.
Okay, so some people, they really thrive in that kind of corporate environment.
Okay.
They love the idea of like climbing the ladder.
Okay.
And for them, it might be moving into those senior management roles.
Okay.
Overseeing bigger teams, more complex projects, higher stakes.
So, like, instead of just managing one little piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
you're managing, like, the whole...
Exactly.
Okay.
So you might go from managing, the flow of fabrics for a single brand to like orchestrating the entire supply chain for a global fashion house.
Okay. That's a lot of responsibility.
It is, but for some people, that's what they live for.
They want that pressure. They
They
want...
want the pressure, they want the challenge.
Okay, so that's definitely one path,
One path, yeah.
but it's not for everybody.
Absolutely not, and that's okay.
Right.
Because there are other ways to find fulfillment in this career.
Okay, like what?
So you might find yourself, as you're working in this field, you might find yourself drawn to a particular niche,
Okay.
right? Like maybe you're super passionate about sustainable sourcing.
Okay.
And you really want to focus on, organic cotton and making sure things are ethically sourced.
Right, so you kind of become the expert in that one specific area.
Exactly.
Right.
Or maybe you love like luxury materials,
Yeah.
Cashmere, silk, all of that.
Okay.
You want to travel the world finding the best, most luxurious materials.
Oh, see, that's the one I would want to do.
Right. It sounds pretty glamorous, doesn't it?
It does, it does.
So specializing in a certain area like that can open doors to really exciting opportunities.
Okay.
Maybe you go work for a smaller, more specialized company,
Okay.
or maybe you become like a consultant and you work with different brands, advising them on their sourcing.
That's a good point, because you don't always have to stay in that same company.
Right, exactly.
You could take your skills and kind of go in different directions.
Absolutely. You become the expert and people are coming to you for your knowledge.
I love that. Okay, so specializing, go in the management route. Those are some good options.
Mm-hmm.
But no matter which path you choose, like, it takes more than just experience, right?
Right. Experience is key, but it's not the only thing.
Right, because what about those certifications we talked about earlier? Like, those must come into play at some point, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because remember how we were saying those certifications, they're like your secret weapons.
Right.
They show employers you're serious, you're invested in this field.
Okay.
Well, that becomes even more important as you start looking at those higher level roles.
Okay, so it's like leveling up, not just in terms of like your salary and your job title,
Right.
but also like how you're perceived within the industry.
Exactly. It's that recognition that you've reached a certain level of expertise.
So you're not just like winging it anymore.
No. You're not just figuring it out as you go.
You know what you're doing.
You've got the knowledge, you've got the skills, and you've got the credentials to prove it.
I like it. Okay, so get certified, climb that ladder, become the expert.
That's the goal.
What a fascinating deep dive this has been.
It's a fascinating field, that's for sure.
It really is. We've explored like the ins and outs of being a textiles distribution manager.
From the day-to-day tasks to those really exciting career paths.
Right. It's a career that like really blends creativity,
Absolutely.
logistics, and like a whole lot of behind the scenes magic.
Making the magic happen.
Yeah, exactly. So to all our listeners out there, if you're feeling inspired,
Yes. Please explore this field.
keep exploring, keep learning,
You might just find your dream job.
and who knows, maybe you'll be the one changing the face of fashion, one perfectly timed shipment at a time.
One shipment at a time, that's right.
I love it. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for having me.